Welcome inside the Parisi Palace, high above 3773 East Broadway. This is the Jake Feinberg Show. Coming to you on Power Talk. Thank you so much for making us part of your day today. Aspiration, in its simplest definition, is a lovely flame climbing heavenward. True aspiration can and does make us feel that if God is for us, who can eventually stand against us? We feel a desire to have God on our side, but we need the aspiration to throw ourselves on God's side. The sun is the only remedy for dark clouds in the sky. Similarly, there is no other medicine than aspiration for our troubled hearts. Aspiration is the first rung of the sky-kissing ladder. Realization is the last. True human aspiration has three intimate friends: purification, quietude, and intensity. Aspiration has an enemy called impatience. Aspiration is the mounting flame of our divine wish to raise ourselves to the crest and crowning of divine perfection. The body aspires through action. The vital aspires through struggles. The mind aspires through self-search. The heart aspires through the feeling of union. The soul aspires through the perfection of God's manifestation. Taylor Rose, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Thank you. Wow.
That's not me. That's from Sri Chinmoy, the great teacher. I don't want to take credit for that.
So beautiful.
So Taylor, it's such an honor to have you back on the program. I wanted you to talk about impatience and how you have learned over this last year to get out of your own way.
Mm-hmm. I love that the word is impatience, because my words for 2021 is deep connection and patience.
Wow, look at that. We're channeling already. Well, I mean, it's true, because it's one of my habitual natures, and something that I still struggle with. But I think that because you just want to believe so badly that you're on this path and you have this purpose, and then sometimes things just don't move, or they don't go as fast as you want, or you're let down by something. I guess impatience coupled with expectations are really a hang-up, and that's why I've tried to approach everything, and I feel that about you too. It's about intention. Like, there are no expectations for anything. It's only about intention. And when you approach it like that, then you can become a conduit for information coming through you from the heavens. So anyway, break it down. I mean, you wrote to me. Well, first of all, anyway, we can get to that later, but tell me about what has changed in your life so much, and then how you've learned to deal and get out of your own way so that impatience becomes patience.
I think the biggest thing is having this grasp to want to know it all. But we live in a world where we'll never know it all. The more we know, the greater our horizon of ignorance, right?
That's right.
And so this idea of patience comes in with it's a daily process. Every day I have to wake up and take my next steps forward, and do the work. I think the work, this soul path, this journey of getting to know myself, is peeling back layer by layer by layer by layer, and the more patience, the more space that I give myself to just fully unravel in the journey, the sweeter it gets. I started my yoga journey in 2007, and I didn't take a teacher training to teach yoga until 2015. And now I'm 6 years on my teaching journey, and I'm just starting to feel like I have found my voice, and I'm claiming my power and my position in the world. But it took all of the hours of daily practice and years of sitting with teachers and of journaling and meditating and really walking my talk to get to this point. And now I just feel like I've manifested my wildest dreams. I went from entering into the pandemic and losing all of my jobs. All of the yoga studios that I taught for closed, and I went into the pandemic and flipped my business to be an online offering pretty much overnight. And in the last year, I bought a home and I built my own yoga studio, and I no longer have to rely on a container that has been created outside of myself to offer my whole heart to the world. I can do it under my own terms and my own stipulations now, and it feels amazing.
That is so inspiring. I mean, can you talk about one specific thing that maybe, well, what's so cool is that, like it's so exciting to, just to find your own voice. I mean, there's so many people that are very authentic teachers of mindful meditation and yoga and all types of different strata on that frequency, but there's also a lot of charlatans, and it just can get really clogged up and messy, and then you wind up projecting or competing, or someone else is creating drama that's bringing you down. I would say that in some ways, has the pandemic helped lower the drama needle for you, and really allowed you to hone in on, practice? Because, I mean, in some ways, as debilitating as this pandemic has been and how awful it's been and tragic, I mean, you don't have a lot of noise or distractions because we're not in these communal settings. Like you said, you would have, before the pandemic, you had studios that you would pay, or you would teach at these studios, but, there was always a lot of noise. And I just feel like, have you been able to unclutter yourself because we have become so separated in this time?
Yeah, I feel like I had to move through a really dramatic period in order to get to the other side.
Can you talk about what was dramatic? What was dramatic?
Yeah. I was taken advantage of pretty largely by white women in yoga, by yoga studio owners, even by yoga teachers. And at the beginning of the pandemic, I actually had to leave a community that I was a part of for 4 years because I had been indoctrinated into a cult, and my leader was a narcissist.
My God, this is absolutely unbelievable.
And it was more of a power over than a power with. And this was all unfolding. This was all unfolding during the start of the BML movement. And it was just really watching how white supremacy and the greater patriarchy was affecting my small yoga world, and how I was operating and learning within a system that was built, I guess, on false pretenses, not on the sacred structure or principles of what I believe yoga is: union, integrity. And so it was really painful. I had to walk away from a community that I loved, from a teacher that I loved, and I had to forge my own path. And so leaving that drama I mean, I fell out of love with yoga for a little bit. It was really hard to come to my mat. It was really hard to do my spiritual practices for a while. And then I had to go back to the text. I had to go back to the words that I loved so much, and to the places that I felt home. And slowly I came back to my practice, and now I would say that it is bigger and stronger than it ever has been. I mean, I meditate day and night. I have a 2-hour personal practice that I do every day. I chant and I sing every day. I do the things now that keep my light really bright.
And that is what I see. And I mean, right, you are glowing right now. It's unbelievable to see you. And I mean, it's not just, I think it's important, if you can, talk a little bit about why you lost faith in your community. I think that it is, you know, you came in because yoga, I mean, how much dogma did you have to deal with growing up? Not that anybody was bad in your life, but the fact is that for so long I listened back to the first 4 minutes of our interview last night, just before I went to bed, and you said that, you know, you were told your whole life that your native gift, your true nature, was not usable, not functional, and something that you should not be cultivating growing up. And so it's been constantly like, no, Taylor Rose, you need to go this way, or you need to believe this, or you need to do that. And then you start out on your yoga journey in a completely street scholar fashion, and you recognize what feels good and what feels like the truth. And then you get into teacher, you know, whatever training you need, credentials. And then after a while, you wind up in a cult. But yet, you know, you still love the people in that cult. You still have, you know, it wasn't like a traumatic, I mean, it was traumatic to leave, but can you talk about this white supremacy that exists within, and just how how it's not even really even understood, because it's just ingrained into our psyche. I mean, it's a strange. And I think I mean, a lot of people will preach from the ivory tower about how tolerant they are, or how accepting they are, or how they believe in all this stuff. But when it comes down to it, they're really just like everybody else.
Yeah, it's a power over versus power with. I think it's a scarcity mentality versus coming from a place of abundance. We live in an abundant universe, and I think this white supremacy, in the way that I've experienced it, is you're too sensitive, you're too much, you're overreacting, you need to simmer down, you need to be a good girl, you need to do X, Y, and Z in order to accomplish X, Y, and Z, right? You have to do these things
absolutely.
in order to do. And so in my training, it was, you need to teach just like me. You're not going to be a perfect teacher unless you know how to do it just like me. And you need more mentorship, and you'll make an impact in the world once you've had more mentorship. And it wasn't, let's find what your gift is, let's find what your specific offering is, let's highlight that and shine that into the world. It was just, you're never enough, and you're never going to do it well enough, and you're going to have to stay here and continue to be mentored until you're perfect. And I'm not really signing up to be perfect. I've spent my whole life trying to unravel from that title and from that label. We are perfectly imperfect, just the way we are. We are flawed, and hopefully we can see both of our assets and our liabilities as our gifts.
Can you talk about this? How much is that need for? Because I mean, like Miles Davis would say, you know, you don't know if it's a wrong note until the next note you play. I mean, there are no wrong notes in music, and imperfection is perfection. In fact, if you make a clam on stage or make a mistake, and you're in a band of of people that have huge ears and listeners, I mean, that can be a gateway to completely new musical vocabulary. So when they're stifling your own individual voice, they're obviously threatened by your individuality and your sort of charisma, chutzpah. I mean, I can feel that you are just beyond, you have really broken away from, whatever dogma, which obviously exists within. I mean, was it shocking? Did that just were they always sort of telling you that you need to, that there was a formula trip to teaching, or was it just sort of, and you had enough of it at a certain point, or did it just come on like once you started to sort of become more assertive in your own life force and true nature?
There's a lot of weird red flags that came up, and they came up out of, I mean, really, I had a nightmare. I had a nightmare last February and dreamt all of these awful things, and I woke up out of my nightmare, and I wanted to ask, a person in the community if it was true, if the things I dreamt were true, but I was too scared. So then I just continued to observe from the outside looking in, and watched all of these red flags pop up, and watched all of these ways that I was being used and abused and manipulated, and I was working basically for free, but under the guise that I was, that I was being mentored, and I was going to be bolstered in the yoga community, and this was going to help me break out and make a name for myself, and attract, a community that could use my love and support. Like it was all under this guise that I was being really well cared for, and my best interests were always being looked out after. And I think I entered the program from a pretty wounded place. I had just, gotten out of my tailspin of an eating disorder. For the majority of my life, it was the first time that I was like really on a heavy path to recovery, and I entered into this community from a wounded place, and I felt like they kept me wounded so that I could never leave. That I would always have to go back to feel filled.
Are you saying you had a dream, a premonition, a prophecy kind of dream?
For sure. And it's so funny because before you reached out for the second interview, mm-hmm. the day before, I knew you were going to reach out and we were going to have another conversation. I was like, "Oh, Jake, I haven't talked to him in a year."
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the way I've been operating. But I mean, what's really funny is, but
yeah.
You know what it is like? It is, you were coming out of one tailspin and healing yourself, and I guess maybe the point, I'd like you to free associate, because like you dropped that situation like a bad habit, and you're obviously doing some beautiful self-cultivation and self-healing, and to come out glowing like you are. I mean, I don't know when we're going to really get back to normal. I'm not sure if there will ever be what we knew as normal, but you have freed yourself. You have become unshackled from the bondage of dogma. And I just want you to talk to people out there who might listen to this well after we've left the planet about, ultimately, is it really necessary to have, I mean, what it sounds like to me is, because of the fact that you started your yoga journey on your own path for 6 years, it allowed you the independence to try to use your individual voice. And when somebody said, "Oh, no, that you need to follow there's a formula trip," because you had that experience, you knew that was a bunch of BS. And I just wanted you to talk to people who have the native gifts of being able to teach mindful meditation and also practice it and chant and devote themselves in a very sincere fashion. What would be your advice to them about actually how far do you go within mainstream yoga? Do you need to get a certification? How important is it to get wrapped up in the McDonaldization of yoga?
Well, I would say that I have absolutely no regrets on my path.
Good.
And I believe that everything unfolded exactly the way that it was supposed to. The people that came into my life and the teachers that came into my life were all there to serve their purpose. I needed all of them. I needed all of the experiences to make me who I am. And I think that the biggest thing is there's a place deep inside of us that is unscathed by the constant fluctuations of our mind and the constant turnings of the external world. And if you can continuously anchor into that place, you will always know what your next step is. My life and the archetype of who I am is different than everybody else. And so I don't think there is any one way to do anything. And I think each individual seeker has to walk their own path. But they don't have to listen to the noise, the chatter, the drama of the external world to find their path. They have to source it from within.
A lot of times people will go through their education, or they'll be mentored in a good way on the bandstand, or I mean whatever. They'll musically they're younger, so they're under the leadership of somebody, and they don't necessarily learn the effective qualities of leadership and things like that or teaching, but they learn what not to do. And I guess once you as you continue to grow and like manifest your purpose and your, like the Taylor Rose, I mean, this curriculum, not even curriculum, but I mean, just like this community that you will eventually build in your life and in the chapters that you continue to write. I mean, what have you learned that you will not do when you may be in a position where one day you are the one that has that ability to be a quote unquote mentor? How will you, what did you learn not to do so that cats will not be walking away saying, my God, I was just brainwashed for 4 years?
Well, it's not just necessarily learned from this one teacher, this one example,
Sure.
But we're not special. I mean, we are all divine and we are all special, and we're not special. Like, I am no greater. I'm not more special than anyone else on this planet. I'm no special than any other living creature. We're all made of the same material. We're all different manifestations of the same form. And so I think the biggest thing is like to see our humanness. They say that there's two ways to reflect the light, right? The first one is to be the candle flame, and the other way is to be the mirror that shines it out, that shows other people their own light. And I think that's going to be the thing that I hold with me forever, is to always be able to look someone else in the eyes and see their humanness and to see their gift and to see their light. And mine's not any brighter than theirs. It's the same.
So what that brings up the word ego. You believe that ego, I mean, maybe it's pretty self-evident, but how have you learned to, Taylor Rose, how have you learned to take what you do seriously, but don't take yourself that seriously? Because you know what it is? The reason you're glowing is because you're like radiating you're happy. You're smiling. You are happy. And so like a Buddha, you are like and a lot of people are, they don't want to be vulnerable, and their ego is invested in who they are. So how have you learned, what would you talk to the vanity of it all? Because there's so much vanity. How have you learned to take what you do seriously, but don't take yourself that seriously?
Yeah, I think always knowing what my why is. Why do I do this work in the world? Why do I wake up every morning and want to study yoga? I think ultimately remembering my why keeps my ego in check. And don't get me wrong, like I think it's good to have a healthy ego. We don't want to touch the hot stove twice. right? So these people that are like, your ego is not your amigo. Actually, we need an ego.
Sure, that's true.
We need that thing. But I think we keep it in check. And I think the way I keep it in check is remembering who I am and where I came from. I am an embodied human form of the divine. And it's not me, Taylor Rose, that wants to share yoga with the world. It's the divine being inside of me that wants to share yoga with the world. And so if I can just, again, like anchor into that quiet place of truth, it's almost like I don't have to talk anymore. It just comes out. When I'm in that really solid place of teaching my classes, it's no longer my words. It's the words that want to come through.
And you recognize that, you realize that then you can be a vessel for stuff coming through you from the heavens, which is really so beautiful. Yeah, I know what I feel. For the first few years of my program, I felt I was so hyped up about attaining these interviews and doing what I thought was and has turned out to be prescient stuff well before it really hit the fan, quote unquote. And I could never explain it to people that were closest to me in the way that I wanted to, and I would get frustrated by it. And I was also learning to find my voice. But then after a period of years and, just sort of climbing the mountain myself, all of that kind of fell away because I was secure in what I was doing. And yet, yeah, you need to have an ego. You need to have some, audacity to take some chances and to reach out and be vulnerable. But yeah, there's some kind of anchor and groundedness that when you are able to, and it's not a materialistic thing. I mean, that's the other part of it, is how much are we struggling as a society, Taylor Rose, with the fact that,
still a void.
Well, like I am not. I'm doing my taxes right now. I'm not a rich man, like monetarily, but like I'm able to support my daughters. I love them, and I'm able to pay the bills. And I've been able to save a little bit, but like none of my value is based on materialism, and I feel. And I don't even know what I am so far from that reality, and yet I realize that so many people are attaching their self-worth or ego to fame, prestige,
their career, and the money they make,
and taking themselves, not just taking what they do seriously, but then taking themselves so seriously. That's what happened to you in this cult, is that they might have been great teachers, but then they said, oh, no, I'm so important that there's just only my way of doing it. Anything else is not acceptable. It seems to me to be, that is analogous to what's happening in our civilization right now. How do we wean?
Isn't it wild?
That's one word for it. I mean, it's nuts. I mean, I wonder how many people recently have come to you since your revelation and newfound truths. How many people are coming to you and trying to work with you about and trying to hang up their hang-ups as it relates to self-worth through commodification?
Yeah, I mean, I teach a very interesting population of people, so that's not really the specific topic that people come to me with. Yeah. My students, it's really interesting. I never pinned myself in the world to be this kind of teacher or healer, but a lot of my private clients that I work with come to me by way of really big life transitions, like going through heart surgery and is scared, or lying on their deathbed and wants to have a good ending to their life, or high school students transitioning into college, girls transitioning out of eating disorder treatments. Like, all of the people that I work with, not all, the majority, have come to me because they want someone to help them hold space for the major feelings that they're feeling. They want someone to help them reattune their nervous system come out of a fight, flight, or freeze and back into homeostasis so that they can take a deep breath, so that they can see the light again, so they can feel joy in their lives. Which is really heavy for me some days because I'm always holding on to really big, important life moments.
How does that, what does that mean in the archetype that you are? How does that, like someone that holds space for people that are dealing with transcending the cycle of birth and death, reincarnation, what kind of things, how do you get below the surface with them? And how do you, it's more than just holding space, because I don't want to, I come to Taylor Rose for enlightenment, not for you to hold space for me. I want, like, you make me, everything's just very clear, and I want to know what you think. And so how do you get deeper with these cats, on something as heavy as, like the next life?
I think it's because I have a joyful disposition. Like I carry this seed of joy, and I think that's what allows us to break in and dive deep into it. Mm-hmm. The work is asking them to really like touch into those places that they're afraid of, and how do we shine light in the dark spaces of our world. And I think because the world does feel so heavy and so dark right now, I think people are reaching out because they want to feel that sense of lightness and joy. But I think it also, that's not all that I am. And I think that's where it gets hard, is because so often people pin me as that, and they forget that I've had to traverse my own darkness.
Absolutely.
In order to be this seed of joy. Like I've had to really go to the places that scare me, and I've had to do a lot of work with a therapist and yoga and all of the tools to get to the place that I'm in.
Well, first of all, I just want to say that I am so proud of you, I'm so humbled to know you, and because, we all, it's funny, when I started my show, I was within a couple of years, because I was interviewing a lot of black musicians, and I was talking about the cultural bias that exists, not just in this country, but in the world. Some people call that racism. And immediately it was, he's a jazz journalist. He interviews jazz musicians. And I was like, okay, I don't want to be pigeonholed like that. So let me go after Ted Nugent. Let me go after David. Let me go after bluegrass musicians and rock musicians and folk musicians and world musicians. And then nobody can stereotype me or pigeonhole me. And I wonder about the different strata. So people come to you with certain things, but when you talk about, there's more to me than just that. How, as a teacher, how are you diversifying yourself? Not a portfolio, but like, how are you diversifying your point of view and your artistry within your craft so that you won't be pigeonholed?
Yeah. So I try to bring the deeper meaning of yoga to the practice. And I think a lot of Western yoga has gotten a lot, fitness based. They've lost the spiritual significance. It's really washed down or completely washed away. And so for me, I try to bring the Hindu mythology. I try to bring the stories to life, to a live feeling in my class. And these stories, they're not light. There's a lot of darkness. It's demons, it's death, it's destruction, it's heavy material. But I try to bring it to my class as a way of storytelling, as a way of pulling out these deeper spiritual questions that will really help guide people through their lives. Like, I'm not actually here, to do yoga for a physical practice, but I'm actually here to put myself in the seat of challenge and then pay attention to my inner world. What happens when I've been in a pose for 2 minutes and my thigh is burning and my nervous system is all shooken up and I want to run away and I'm distracting myself with the thoughts of my mind? Like, how do I come back to this place of why am I here? I'm here to build strength. I'm here to build fortitude so that when I step out into the challenging world, I've got this anchor of my breath. I know my power deep down inside. I can do anything. It's bringing union back into the world, back into the practice.
Talking to Taylor Rose on the Jake Feinberg show, and she apparently had a premonition that we were going to have another conversation, but we have a game on this program called Name That Voice. I don't expect you to know who this is, but this is why I knew that we were going to have a second conversation. So take a listen, and we'll come back.
Oh, well, we had read, Ginsberg's Yahi letters and, Aldous Huxley, and so we were excited by this drug. We had read about it, and we were looking forward to the day we would finally come across it. And then one time we got some acid. Early days of the Jefferson Airplane, I remember, and first day I took it, I had a fantastic time. I remember the Bill Thompson was with me, and you'd take it and have one guy straight, in case you went crazy or something.
Right.
So he was my straight man. He took it first. I was his straight man. I don't know if he enjoyed it as much as I did, but I took it. I had a great time, and he was my straight man. In fact, we went roaming up in the hills of Haight-Ashbury in the early morning hours, and it was raining, and it looked like raindrops were turning into colored splashes like Walt Disney. And out of somewhere came this black guy who tried to rob us with his knife, and he was shoving it in my face, and I was going, "Ooh, what a beautiful knife. And, oh, you're so pretty." And pretty soon I eventually had my arms around the guy, and
Right.
and the guy was saying, "Hey, you ought to take this mother to the hospital. He's crazy," and,
Right.
and he left us alone, but I was like, I remember the knife was sparkling like the sword of Excalibur or something to me,
Taylor Rose, that was an interview I did with the late great singer from Jefferson Airplane, Marty Ballin, and
Incredible.
and what was funny, Taylor Rose, is that you entered my consciousness again, because I have actually, I couldn't believe that our first interview was during the pandemic. That's how long the pandemic's been going on, which is incredible. But, the last few years I've dedicated my show to, again, diversification, not being pigeonholed. And I had to go after the merry pranksters and guys and women that were basically, coming up at a time when LSD was being made in laboratories all over the world, and it was legal. And so I wrote a book on it, and basically I put up one of the excerpts from it, and I saw you commented. You said something like, "Can the person in the back of the room get a microphone?" And I was like, "Well, my God, where?" I just was like, I was like, there she is again, And I wanted to know about your because here's the thing, there's nothing that authority or people in perceived positions of authority hate worse than somebody who's on psychedelics, psilocybin, ayahuasca, whatever it is. Everything is so, like he was talking about. He in a real life situation, someone pulls a knife on you. It's a very scary thing, and he's just like trying to hug the guy, and and it breaks down all this vanity and morality, and then you can ultimately sit in the mess. And I just wonder about if you could talk a little bit about how you've experienced psychedelics.
Participated?
Yeah, well, because I think that that's part of being able to, and that's when I knew we would connect again, because I said, part of one reason you're mentally strong right now, you're so strong because somehow you've you know, you've been able to sit in the mess, and a lot of times outside of your daily practice and cultivation, psychedelics can do that to you. And I just wanted you to talk a little bit about how that's, you know, impacted your multidimensional self.
I like to call drugs high-grade fire.
What does that? Explain what that means. Explain that.
Like, I can get to the place that drugs take me without them.
Sure.
It just takes me a lot longer. It's quick. It's a quick pathway. It's a quick opening. It's a push through the threshold rather than easing into it, I guess I would say. And bless my father's heart if he hears this story. I love you, Dad.
Yeah.
My dad is a mailman driver, and he drives around all day listening to the radio.
I love
He's
this.
Quite successful at winning concert tickets on the radio.
Wow.
And so when I was about, I don't know, maybe 16, 17, it was my first or second year of college, my dad had won tickets on the radio to 10,000 Lakes Festival, which is this big festival. It used to happen in Minnesota. And so huge hippie festival is what you would think of it in your mind as a young kid. Lots of illicit drugs. So me, 16, 17, call my best girlfriend up, and I'm like, hey, we have tickets to go to 10,000 Lakes for the weekend. We drive there overnight.
Yeah.
We park in line to be let in, like, right away, the first car in the campsite when they open up in the morning. We've been up all night. We get to our campsite. We set up our tent, and my girlfriend and I are just going to go to bed. And my other girlfriend is there as well. She's at a different campsite. She comes running over, and she goes, stick out your tongue. And she doses us.
I love this. Oh, my God.
Liquid
That's what the
acid
excerpt was. That's what the excerpt was. Stick out your tongue.
Stick out your tongue.
Yeah.
And so, needless to say, we never went back to bed that day. And it was about, we had about 45 minutes left of sanity. So we always have this running joke of like, these are the days of our lives. We've got 45 minutes left.
That's it.
And then it kicks in. But that experience, it was the first time I had ever taken on a hallucinogenic, and I was with my two best girls. And I've never laughed so much in my entire life. Like, there's never been more pain from laughter in my stomach and in my face than this day. And I will never, ever forget it. Like, just so many magical moments happened. There were streamers hanging from a tree, and I can remember dancing in the streamers. And, looking back now, I don't know if they even existed, but it's very visual in my mind.
Thank God for your dad winning tickets. I mean, that would never have happened.
It's just amazing. No, it's just amazing that it's like my father, my parents were great parents, but obviously, we don't do drugs and alcohol. That was the rules, right?
Right.
We don't do drugs and alcohol. And so for my dad to get us these tickets and to have like the greatest experience on drugs of my whole life because of him, we like to chuckle about that.
How do you use? I mean, like in it's funny. I kind of am envious of people that can microdose a lot, even in this time, because it does wash away the cobwebs of COVID. In some ways, it can give you. I just wonder if it's something that is now, it's not a major part of your constitution, but it's microdosing is a tool in your toolbox when you need to, just when you're in the right headspace and you're in the right commune of people, or maybe you do it,
outside in nature.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it's so sad because. My God, and I didn't even think about all this crap that's going on in Minnesota or in Minneapolis area, and this cat that was tragically killed by quote unquote by mistake. I mean, he had a misdemeanor violation, felony for marijuana, and it's like
one joint.
And
I can't. Yeah. And I live in Colorado now, right? So it's legal where I live. But
it is legal in Arizona.
Minnesota is where I grew up. Yes, and that's why it's too. It's like, oh, I'm going to admit this on the radio, but I like that you call it clearing out the cobwebs. So since I was 16 years old, I still clear out the cobwebs about twice a year when I feel like I'm really stuck in a rut, and if I have a block in my creativity, or I don't know, it's like I never know when the next time's going to be or when I'm going to need it. But normally about twice a year, the opportunity arises, it presents itself, and it's a clearing out. For my husband, no way. He won't, like, he had we were pretty wild in our youth, and he says, he's looked over the edge enough times that he doesn't have to do it anymore. Like, he's good now.
Yeah,
he's in his 30s.
Yeah, I did. Well, I mean, he's smart, because I'm waiting for an opportunity in my life when I feel that I'm with the right people, or I'm like on a place where, I can because I think it's good, but I think that you have to be like in a place in your, mentally, where you're okay staring over the edge for, maybe it's not, your first experience was very positive and buoyant and lovely, and you were laughing, and it was just a great thing. I've had experiences where they've just, like, I'm just like, I'm going to the loony bin, like, I cannot believe my parents, send me to college, and I'm losing my mind. And that's not the place I want to be. But I just think that, like,
it's a sacred medicine, and I think it needs to be taken in ritual, and it needs to be taken with intention. It needs to be taken as medicine, and you receive it as such.
I want, Taylor Rose, I just wanted to ask you about, how people can, not believe, in this time, there's a lot of people who, we talked about this before, they're caught up in their reputations, or what they've created as, their little their little niches or whatever. And it might include traveling the world to, quote unquote, teach yoga, and, put up all these pictures about all these exotic locations and all these ceremonies, and all this stuff is invested, like you said, but it has nothing to do with the sacred practice of yoga. And, I kind of wanted you to talk to just people about how not to feel self-pity during this time, how not to feel victimized by these circumstances, and ultimately how to push themselves out of their comfort zone in order to grow and find peace. Because I think, obviously, let's just face it. I'm about to do an interview with a drummer from Colorado, Mark Levy, who, the guy is a professional musician, and he hasn't gone on tour in over a year. If somebody took the microphone away from me for a year, Taylor Rose, I wouldn't be in very good shape right now. It would not be a good scene, I don't know what, but yet thankfully if something was taken away from somebody this year in this pandemic, God forbid it's their yogic practice on the bandstand, or their yoga studio, or they've lost a community, what's the best way for cats to not feel grievance, self-loathing, and pity for themselves, and actually, like you said, continue to project light into a dark world?
I'm going to use words from my teacher's teacher, because it's guiding me through these hard times, this challenging time. The first is that in life, we're always going to be met with unanswerable whys. But what are we learning through this experience that we couldn't learn any other way? I think that so much, especially in the yoga world, we talk about love and light and rainbows, and I don't want to be the toxic positivity person, because the dark is real. Like,
right. Yeah.
The more that we deny the dark aspects of ourselves or of our lives, the stronger hold they take of us. And if we can really sit with, we need a difference in order to create a meaningful life. Meaning, without the dark sky, we would never see the stars at night. It's a difference that makes the difference. And so how can we be in a place of holding the paradox, of holding light and dark? It won't always be this way. You won't always be in the bottom, in the valley, in the low, in the struggle. You will rise up again. But right now, when we are in the bottom, when we are in the dark, when we are in the struggle, what are we learning through this experience that we couldn't learn any other way?
In fact, some people would say the greatest place to be is at the bottom of the pit, because that's when realism is activated. And I guess you only know that if you've been there. I got to tell you, I hope we can do another interview, Taylor Rose. I've interviewed a lot of spiritual practitioners. A lot of them are struggling right now with the noise, and I think, and they're very brilliant and very honest and sincere, like yourself. But you got something going on different, and I just think it's the fact that you've been so hard on yourself based on what society says you should do, and then you've overcome that by being like, screw it, I know what feels right, and so many people are not doing that. You are, and I just think and that's what I've been doing, and I just feel like mad props to you, and I treasure our connection, and I hope we can continue down the path, because I feel like you are. I mean, it's a life journey, but I'm so glad you found your purpose, sooner than later, because I think a lot of suffering is coming from cats that, this pandemic has forced us to recognize. I mean, are you really going to ever take anything for granted again? And also, like, how urgent is it? How important and urgent it is to constantly create and inspire. I mean, I didn't understand why I was running around, traveling and going to see music and losing my mind and healing. Number one, I realize now, I was in psychotherapy since I was 7 or 8 years old, but I didn't need it anymore because music was healing. But now it's kind of gone. And I just think that you just keep staying on your path, and I'm sure that there will be other hurdles, but I mean, you're kind of battle tested. So, I mean, let's just stay in touch and
yeah. I was going to say one more thing's coming up. Is it okay if I share it?
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
So I had a teacher ask me about a year ago, right at the start of the pandemic. We were in the pandemic, what we were going to do. We were all scrambling, and they said, do you want an oil rig in your backyard, or do you want to grow an almond tree? And for me, that was, how do I create more joy and more beauty in my life? And so I've just been thinking this whole year of what it would be like to plant an almond tree and what it would be like to grow an almond tree. And I think that's been my guiding principle. Every opportunity that comes my way, if I close my eyes and if it feels exactly like it would feel to grow an almond tree, I'm like, yeah, I'll take it.
Wow.
But if it feels like an oil rig, I'm like, no thanks. I don't want that in my backyard. I'll pass.
Bless you, Taylor Rose. And let's stay in touch. And
absolutely.
Take
Thank
it easy.
You so much.
Always a pleasure, my friend.
Be well.
Bless you. Bye. It's always beautiful to talk to somebody who's found their purpose in life and is doing it their own way in a fearless fashion. We'll be back with Mark Levy on the other side after this.